Hi everybody, it's Sharna here. I'm back with a new card video. This time I'm using the new Lawn Fawn stamp set, Totally Awesome. And this is what I've stamped out so far to get ready to color. So let's go ahead and get to it. I've sped this up for you because otherwise we'd be here all day. I'm using a limited color palette and I'll have the colors listed below if you do not catch the colors on screen, so you can see what I used. Using one limited color palette makes the whole card design more cohesive, so I stuck to what's in the cup. And so you can go ahead and see here that I'm using the yellow greens. I always start from dark to light. It just helps me blend better. Depends how long you've been coloring with the Copics, but I just honestly I'm lazy, so going from dark to light just saves me a step. But if you're having a problem with your blending, go ahead and go from light to dark and then back again. This will give you a more even blend. And here I used the RVs, and I wanted something a little more bright to pop off the page. So these were my pops of color. The rest of the colors are all pretty much in that blue, green, or brown family. So I'll let you finish watching me color here, and I will be back when I'm done. Okay, now onto the background here. I've got some distress oxides that I'm going to use. Right now I'm using, I believe it's peacock feathers on the water. I'm going to go ahead and blend that out. I'm using a Post-it note upside down just so I don't get fingerprints in it. This does smudge pretty easily. I'm using Nina Solar White just to blend on. You don't need anything special, as the distress inks blend really easily. Unlike the regular distress inks, the oxides are super smooth. I usually start off the paper and blend on really lightly. You can build it up as much as you want, but I tend to like a light application, at least for the first pass. And you can go over this to remove any tool marks. They come right out, or you can go back and forth. It takes them out really easily, unlike the regular distress inks where you have to go darker. This pretty much blends smooth on the first pass. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in some Twisted Citron. These blend together pretty well, and you'll see in the next part that you can actually get a third color out of this. I tried not to do that in the middle here. I'm just trying to bring them just touching, and I'm smoothing it out. And so, just so you can see that it's Twisted Citron, it goes pretty well with the blue, with the yellow-green of the frogs. Tried to keep a pretty simple color palette. And now I'm going to spray it. This just sets the ink so that it doesn't smudge. I'm sorry, I was off screen for that. I'm about 5 or 6 inches away. And it's just a really fine mist. It dries pretty quickly. You can use the heat tool, but I tend to just let it dry. I have another background that I've already cut here, but I used the Lawn Fawn outside in rectangles. I think second to largest, just so I'd have a pretty thick border. I was thinking of doing a shaker card, but I changed my mind halfway through. Just laying it out here, making sure everything fits on the page properly. I know the layout that I want. I just want to make sure it's going to work now with the size of the border that I chose. And I want to also use the Bayou backdrops. I'm only going to use the top portion. So I didn't have a color of cardstock that I thought went well with the two colors that I chose. So I'm actually going to blend those two colors together to get a third color, just slightly darker than the Twisted Citron by itself. Even though these are opaque, they still do have some dye ink properties, so they are going to blend together. You just have to go over them a couple times, and I just wanted to check to make sure I like that color, and I didn't, so I'm going to add more green back on top of it. I wanted it to be more yellow-green than blue-green, so I probably could have just used Lucky Clover, but that would have been really dark. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. And I'm only going to use the top part, so I'm actually going to cut that off here. And I'm sorry that was off camera, but I went ahead and applied it with some liquid glue, and that made it easy to move it around. That's just some multi-matte medium, or multi-medium matte, or whichever way you say it. And that's how I'm going to glue everything down, because it gives me some wiggle room in case I need to lift anything up or move anything around. But normally I just use glue dots. I just happen to be out at the minute. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all put together. Alright, so this is where I decided I was going to use an action wobble instead of a shaker card. So I'm going to go ahead and make the base. That's out of some 110-pound Nina, just so it's more stable. And I'm going to go ahead and mark out where I need that background to go, just because I want to pop up my frame. Even though I'm not making a shaker, I still want a little bit of dimension there. And it would have been easier had I not already put the Bayou backdrops down. I could have just used that instead of having to mark it. So I did the best I could. It's actually not square, and I'm going to fix that in a minute with my markers, which ends up being a problem. But it's alright, it worked out in the end. So I just put one layer of foam tape. It's my Big Mama roll of foam tape. And I split it in half just so it would fit nicely behind the frame. I could have probably left it whole, but I didn't want it to show around the edges if you looked from the side. So there, I was trying to line it up. I'm going to try and redo it, and this is when I realized it's just not straight. So this is where I had a problem with the Bayou backdrops also. It was starting to fringe up, which if I had applied it to the background instead of to the frame, it wouldn't be doing. But I thought I was going to glue it down to the acetate, which now that I don't have a shaker card, I don't have. But you just work with what you have. These things are so much fun to play with. I'm just going to glue down the couple of pieces that are fringing up on me. I just don't want them to get caught in the envelope when they take the card out. And now I'm using my markers in colors that coordinate with the background, just to cover up any white that's really showing. It's hard to see in the video, but it was more obvious in real life that there was white peeking through just around the edges there. And I'm just adding a couple finishing touches. I colored a lot more than what I used, and I just put those in with the packaging when I'm done for a card later on. And I wanted a sentiment, but I didn't think it worked on the front. It was already too busy, so I'm going to go ahead and use it on the inside instead. I used the same Distress Oxide that I used on the outside. It actually stamps really nicely. I was quite surprised. I think the Broken China, otherwise it's the Peacock Feathers. I'll put it in the description. And I just used a stamp block for that instead of my Misty, and of course then I had to mess with it because I didn't line it up straight. And it ends up working out. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that down. And then I decided that that wasn't enough. Go ahead and clean it off. That's my Lawn Fawn stamp chamois, by the way. I know it's almost black at this point and I should probably get a new one, but it still cleans my stamps really well. And I'm really particular in getting all the ink off my stamps, and I clean them between every use, every time I put them on or off the block. And if it doesn't wipe off with this chamois, then I'm going to use some sort of stamp cleaner, either the Hero Arts or Hampton Arts. Both work really well for me, even with the ink that tends to stain more. As long as you clean it right away, it's going to come off. So I just went ahead and stamped that in my Lawn Fawn Jet Black. So it's super dark, just as an added detail. Super cute. And that's it. See you again soon.